topic today. Again, we did, we talked about the moment of death and organ donation, talked about moment of death, brain death versus cardiac death, or what was the other term for brain death?
Yeah, irreversible coma.
Irreversible coma. And we talked about organ donation from a live person and somebody who has passed away, and how do you determine like what organs to give if you're alive, and how do you determine what organs to give when you die based on the moment of death. We talked about last week. We talked about hospice, DNR. We talked about like the value of life, seeing life as infinite value, as a relative value. Like it's infinite value no matter what. You should never. You should always extend life. However, there are other values we consider as well, and that's kind of like the direction we took, which is that we consider quality of life at the very end of life. Should you extend the person's suffering in an unlimited way just so they can stay alive, or can you bring in that other value of quality of life as well, and other values that we can consider? So we talked about that last week. We talked about life support. We talked about intubation and extubation. So it was a good class. If you missed it, it's worth catching up on that. We did comfort measures also, like after we decide that somebody's going to go on hospice, Judaism requires that we take care of them and try to keep them comfortable. And we talked about to what extent and what a level of autonomy the patient has. Okay, so if you want the summary of the whole class, just go on this file and you have it here in this video, as Robert will probably note to you. You can get, this is the cheat sheet right here, okay?
One time was enough.
Okay, one time was enough. Okay, so here's our topic for today.
You're not obvious.
So here's a question I want to open up with. This is a picture of Yaakov. It's a real picture now. It's so it's Yaakov on his deathbed, blessing his sons. Okay, so all the sons came to get blessings from him, and Yaakov basically had an ethical will. If you think about it, we're going to go look at that. But Yaakov, Moshe, David, they all had words to say in their final days to us, to their children. They had guidance and direction. So that's the question kind of want to open up with from our first topic is, why would someone write a legacy letter or an ethical will? Like, who is it for? What is its purpose? we thought it's biblical times. They didn't really. It's like all. What's it called? Have you thought about writing one? So let's start with the first question. Why would someone write a legacy letter or an ethical will? Okay, so anyone want to answer that? Like, why? Let me define an ethical will. An ethical will is basically it's not it doesn't financially commit you. It's not connected to your finances. It's connected to like lessons or messages you want to relay to the next generation. So like in my second year as a rabbi here, I accompanied. So I worked at one point as this topic is close to me because I worked as a hospice chaplain for a full unit of chaplaincy, meaning four units you become official chaplain. So I worked a full summer in that for one unit of credit. So I had familiarity with hospice and accompanying people in those times. So as I became a rabbi, I found myself involved in that and kind of drawn to it. So somebody reached out to our shul. They're affiliated with our shul, and he was in his final days, final month or two, and they invited me to come talk to him. And I met with him maybe like 8 to 10 times. And toward the final meetings, he had very advanced stages of like metastatic cancer. We made videos. I recorded him for his family. That's a form of an ethical will. Yeah, it was very powerful. The family still has them, and they watch them, and basically he addressed each one of his family members. He shared with them what he thought about them and what he wanted for them. And so what would be a reason someone might, so that you could do that in a recording, you could do that in an audio recording, you can do it in writing. We're going to see this book that I brought. You can get this on Amazon, Great Jewish Letters. This is a fantastic book. and it's anybody, it's not like you have to be a great scholar to read this book. It's letters that the rabbis wrote over the generations. They have a section on rabbis' ethical wills. So we're going to see a few of them. Okay, it's just show you that rabbis do this too. So the question is, why would somebody want to write an ethical will? Yeah.
I mean, memory is fallible. So, we're all trying to pass on wisdom or advice or whatever it is to the next generation, but that takes place over what, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or something, if you're lucky. And I remember both of my parents, all of them, things that they said or they valued, but it would be so much nicer to have something that they either wrote or a video or whatever that I could refer back to or that I could listen to. It would be a lot more comforting, and it's also something that can endure through the generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this project you did, these videos were only shared after the man's death and it was planned that way?
They knew that I made them,
Uh-huh.
so it was in concert with them. Yeah, he said we made
After
them.
I go.
Yeah, after I go, leave these with them.
So there wasn't any room for discussion, that's what.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like they could see them and discuss them. No, that
Sure,
wasn't.
because
You could,
they had thoughts when
that could be
they thought.
that could be another mode of doing it for sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. Like writing something even now and then sharing it with your loved ones.
Somebody who does it doesn't want to have the discussion. They want to say what they want to say without there being a discussion. I'm getting a head shake there.
Yaakov, he basically told his kids the blessings, and some of them weren't so positive. Oh, who's talking? Oh, you wanna?
She's muted.
I
Freddie
unmuted
told me to
myself.
mute you, but I didn't do that. I didn't listen to him. I think you muted yourself.
I by accident I did. But I completely agree. And I also, and my family will tell you that I'm an extremely emotional person. I think it is a beautiful way to keep the person's memory alive. And I think it's a beautiful way to, I also feel that you should tell people how you feel about them when you're still alive. But
Yeah.
I also feel that is a beautiful thing to do for your family.
Mhm.
I just
Yeah,
felt like
let's do
sharing.
2 more. Yeah, thank you. 2 more.
I agree that sharing before might cloud the waters about how you want to be remembered, because the last memory will be the discussion back and forth about it and not
Meaning,
what you're sharing with them.
meaning if you
It
share
might bring up strong feelings
by having it,
by sharing it before you.
interesting.
And that clouds the memory
Mhm.
of what the meaning of
be really careful.
doing this
It's
video,
no kids. Should be
legacy
fully aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I imagine even with that being considered, it might be better still to have something extant versus not. Even, I'm saying to have something, yeah.
Let me just share with you guys, for me, the legacy aspect of it is the most important part. It's the continuity, basically a genealogical.
Can you hear Elliot at home? Okay.
So for example, I mean, I have, if any of my kids or relatives are interested in all of this stuff, I mean, I've already set the path for them. I've recorded, the voices of, and interviewed, I've interviewed Rita's mom extensively.
Wow.
I have recordings of my father, the kids never knew my mother. I say digital messages coming off of the tape machine, for example, from long ago. I have a genealogical record that goes back to tell not only my children, but me, who am I, where did I come from? How did I get here? And why do I believe the way I do? So I mean, I think the ethical part of it comes with that, as long as you've got the stories and you write them down and you record them so that the kids can read it if they're ever interested in it.
Mhm.
For me, that's the important part. It always has been. It's family, it's relationship, and it's the continuity. Door, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
But I've got it all. I've got extensive amounts of photographs, documents, paper clippings that go back to the 30s, stuff like that. I've really done, and I continue to do that work, looking. In fact, it's interesting, I found out actually Steve Lyons, who's a member here, notified me, he said, I learned from 23andMe that we're related. So we are going to be,
Is that a good thing?
examining that. See, where is it?
Do you want it?
In the end, we always say, hey, we're all related, and we can all consolidate.
So that's, so that's a whole other level of,
So that's the legacy.
yeah, for sure. So there's legacy, there's ethical, those could be a little bit different too. Leaving your legacy versus an ethical will, which is a little bit more intentional around the lessons and the messages. Ted, did you wanna? But loud, please.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the ethical.
You hear Ted? Okay. I'm sorry, they can't hear you.
One thing,
Why do you do that to Ted every, no.
They can't hear him.
people generally do things like write memoirs of their life. And very much, this is something that they wish to carry on the things that they did during their life. It's a certain self-validation, or to validate
Thank
their
you.
life.
Thank you. So Ted's saying it's a certain self-validation. That's kind of what I was looking for. Like when I wrote here in the questions, like who is it for? It could be for us to help us clarify what we've done, to leave beyond something beyond, like for ourselves, that we left something of worth for the next generation beyond like the life that we live, like to concretize it.
But it's also for the person, because
For the person who wrote it, or the person who's,
the person who wrote it is, I'm on my way out the door.
Yeah.
What have I done with my life?
Correct. So that's why I wanted to highlight this. And it can also definitely be for the next generation after. There's a lot of reasons why people would write it, and there's a lot of areas of focus in these documents that we leave behind. Yeah.
Rabbi?
I think.
One moment, let's just Rob, and then I really want to get to some of our material.
Explain.
This is a great topic, I guess.
Explain actually, so it's clear, what is an ethical will?
That's what we're going, so.
We're talking about, but we don't know what it is.
Correct. So ethical will, I kind of explained in the beginning, but ethical will is an ethical will and a legacy letter. They are documents or some sort of documentation we leave behind for the next generation beyond death. And it's there for them. And we write it for different, we compose it for different reasons. It could be, as we said, to deliver messages to them. It could be to give them guidance. It could be to allow them to know where they came from and who they are. It can also be for ourselves as well. We're kind of trying to put our lives into words and trying to figure out what was the purpose of what we did and what we're leaving behind. So there's a lot of reasons why we do, but it's just a documentation we leave behind for the next generation. And we call it an ethical will because it's not a financial will. You're not talking about your money. You're not talking about how that's going to be spent or disseminated, but rather it's more like what you want to leave. I'm going to show you a few examples. Just, Anne, you're going to share something?
Yeah, just very quickly. And I think we're all assuming that the people doing these ethical wills have good intentions. But I can think of circumstances where they're evening scores, and that can be devastating to the people who are left behind, and there's no recourse.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're not talking about that type of ethical will. Okay?
Right,
That's
right.
That's unethical.
Cute.
Unethical. Okay. So here are some questions to think about when you're writing. Let's take a look at a few ethical wills first off. Here. Rabbi. Oh, let's move this down. Sorry, moving things around at home. Okay. After my father died, my brother went to my father's office, the drawer we were supposed to go to when he died. There he found not only the financial files he kept so neatly, but also a letter addressed to the family. It was so wonderful to have an indication that we would have a message from my father to read and to learn from, not just then and there, but for times to come. It was really a Torah of his life. And to this day, we get together to talk about it. On his birthday, we read and discuss it, almost like giving commentary to his teaching and his life. So I'm bringing this to help us start thinking about like what what we might want to leave behind, like why it might be valuable for us to want to think about this. The letter reflects my father's personality, both in his distinctive handwriting and tone. As my father did in life, the letter quotes liberally from the prayer book and Jewish text, and I can hear his voice as I read. Because that's just an example of ethical. Well, here's just some text talking about Yaakov. Yaakov, before he passed away, invited his children and his grandchildren to come get blessings from him. And we see a lot. He talks about what's going to happen with them, who they are, how he understands their purpose in life. Yaakov did it, Moshe did it, David did it in the Tanakh. So it's not like it goes way back. This is something that goes way back. So I want to show you. Let's see if I can get this open. Let's do it this way. This is Rav. Let me download this. Okay, this is Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's. I wonder if they can see it at home. Second. Let's just do it here. This is Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's ethical will. Ever heard of his name before? Yeah. So he's well known. He passed away in 1888. He left a will. This is the length of it, so we can probably just get through it together. This is an example. I mean, I have a few of them here. This is linked on the doc, and I can send it in the email. Let's just read his will. His children. I brought. It appears in this book that I showed you. It's just beautiful, so I thought we could share it with you. It would be simple to all of you if I would tell you words of warning and admonishment to remain strong in your fear of heaven and throughout your journey in the path of God. Thank God there is no need for my mouth to utter such a request. However, I do ask one thing of you. In the name of your dear mother, Zal, and myself, I entreat you with the complete warmth of my heart and my soul to do everything in your power to fulfill what I ask at each moment, at every hour. This is the request. I think he's speaking to his family here. Please preserve the brotherly love and harmony between you. Let there not be bad blood and absence of friendship among you. All right, so he's kind of blessing them and guiding them what's most important for him, for them to in terms of their actions when he dies. For the sake of the memory of your dear mother, Zal, my memory, please stay close with one another. This sometimes happens that one offends the other, knowingly or unknowingly, with a word or with a deed, or the other party believes that someone slighted him. I beg of you, remember us and do not wound one another. Remember us and forgive and pardon one another. Ask forgiveness and grant forgiveness, and do not hold a grudge in your hearts. Reveal what is in your hearts to one another. Do not go to bed with a heart full of grievances, which have not been satisfactorily resolved. There will be no better way to honor our memory and to earn blessing and success for you and your children than by fulfilling this wish. This truth is eternal. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together. So with the expectation of this request being fulfilled, I take leave of you with a serene heart. Be in peace, my dear and cherished ones. I see you all before me, old and young, close and far, my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law. I see you all before me, the precious souls, sweet and dear, and I lift up my eyes toward God. May he be blessed, pleading with him that he will bless all of you forever. And he says, O God, before whom my forefathers walked, God who leads me from my inception till this day, may the angel redeems me. Familiar with that. This is, Yaakov said this one. May the spirit of the Torah, etc., spirit of knowledge of God, never be removed from your mouths, etc. May it be his will. Amen. So that's one example of an ethical will. I'll show you one more, and I'll show you a text that complements it in a way. Yeah.
This makes me think, this just came to my mind, that like Kohelet ends up being like a bit of an ethical will. Because if you consider it, Shlomo HaMelech's, where he
Ecclesiastes, that helpful.
Ecclesiastic. So it just, it goes over all these ethical things, but in the end, God.
That's
So just
right. Yeah. So here's Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. So he says he's basically guiding them in different ways, very simply.
Tombstone.
The tombstone should be of a regular size, certainly no higher than that of my dear parents. Peace be unto them. I give permission to add to the tombstone the following words. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was one of the greatest rabbis of the previous generation, like according to all circles. So he was consulted on the most complicated matters of Jewish law. He's a rabbi in Israel. He a lot of writings on medical ethics, and he's just one of the greatest authorities. So this is what he wrote. I give permission to add to the tombstone the following words. He developed students at Yeshivat Kol Torah and disseminated Torah to the public. Do not bring my body into the sacred hall of Yeshiva or Beit Midrash. If there should be those who wish to deliver eulogy, I sincerely ask the remarks be brief. And contain no praise about me. Let them speak only words to inspire love of Torah, fear of heaven, and improvement of deed and character. I request my family not to solicit all others to eulogize me at the Shiva or at the Shloshim. There are those people who wish to eulogize me on their own volition. I ask them once again not to heap praises upon me. Even in my lifetime, such praise greatly disturbed me, especially the exaggerations written about me in recent years. I must emphasize my wish not to prolong the eulogies, thereby inconveniencing the listeners. I should quote this sometimes before at our funerals. All right. I wholeheartedly forgive every person who wronged me. In addition, I plead with, so here's like the intention is a few things, like he's worried not just about his children, he's kind of doesn't want to burden anybody upon his death. He also wants to let people know if they're worried that they might have wronged him, that they're forgiven. So it's a little bit, it's different, people have different intentions behind it. In addition, I plead with anybody who feels that I slighted him, whom I actually have intentionally or unintentionally, or I've hurt intentionally or unintentionally, please forgive me. It is not good for them either if, God forbid, others are punished through them. If my health declines in my final years, God forbid, I request that I be admitted to some good institution for the aged, so I do not want to be a burden upon my family. I close with the hope to God, the Master of mercy and forgiveness, who knows my broken heart, that he have mercy upon me and forgive me for all my sins and transgressions. I have remorse over them. I ask God, interesting, so he's praying to God in this document, putting it out there, that he bestow his blessing on my entire family. They should merit serving him with joy and with good hearts all their lives, both spiritually and materially. Amen. So he's also saying here a message to his family, like he wants them to follow in the ways. He's not doing it in a direct way. So, but he's still leaving that blessing. So here's a ethical will of the Nesivos. So he wrote of Yaakov Loiberbaum. He wrote a book called Netivot HaMishpat. It's a very well-read book in yeshiva. It's like very deep analysis of the Talmud. So it's very interesting. At the end of his ethical will, he has a lot to say in terms of like what they should do in terms of learning, with how they should live their lives in terms of Torah. So it's a little bit different than the previous two. But then he says at the end here, during the week of mourning for me, gather 10 scholars in your home to study Mishnah. So it's a different, exact opposite of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He's like, do things for me. Before they commence, they should declare that they're learning to provide merit for my soul. After, you should recite the Kaddish prayer. Commit yourself to study Mishnayos, my memory for the entire first year, as well as in every yard site. Verbalizing that is for the merit of my soul. I would like you to eulogize me. So that's different than Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. If you're unable to do so yourselves, hire people that can. Our sages are very insistent that eulogy can be delivered not for reasons of vanity, but undoubtedly for some profound purpose. Inform the community of Lisa as soon as possible on the date of my passing, as they accord their departed rabbis proper respect, saying the Kel Malei Rachamim prayer on special occasions during services. So I imagine this component is like thinking about his afterlife and thinking about how this people in this world can bring him merit in the afterlife. So that's probably what he's thinking about. So this could be, we're talking about, could be for yourself, could be for others. So I just want to show you like a few examples of this. Anyway, so you can take a look at this. Let's go back to where we were. So here, okay, 1 second, sorry. Okay, that's not that. Okay, I thought that was something I wanted to show. Okay, sorry, I'm making you a little dizzy here.
Have you seen a video?
Anything else I want to show you here? Here's a little video, but I'm going to skip the video, but let's watch the video. 1 second. 1 second. I want to just share it with you, and then we're going to get on to end of life directives.
It's ma'am. Why don't I just text it to you? I don't even know if I ever.
Okay, this video is 2 minutes long, but it's basically a woman's experience with an ethical will. And after this, we're gonna move on to end of life directives.
What moved you to write the book? Were there personal or professional experiences that contributed to that decision?
Indeed, there was. When I was about 14, my father wrote, at that time it was called an ethical will, to his children, and he wrote it as part of an adult education class, and everybody in the class was writing letters to their children. And he came home from synagogue one day and he handed me this booklet that said ethical wills on the front, and I had no idea what they were. So I look at this booklet and he goes, "One of these is mine, guess which one?" And I went to the den and I started looking through this booklet and putting asterisks next to all of these different letters. And I, came back with like 4 asterisks. Okay, Dad, one of these, it's one of these. And I hadn't read through them because I didn't care about anyone else's letter. I wanted to see what it was that my dad had written. And so he looks at this, he said, it's this one. You did it rather quickly. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember going back into the den and reading that letter. And I read it over and over again. And I just cried. I cried and I cried. And why? Because my dad was this, very well-respected rabbi. And there was this sense around him, at least in those days and ages, it was a sense that here was this being who was close to perfect. At least that's how I was seeing him as a teenager, but that's how the community in my eyes seemed to, they would always come up, your father's this, your father's great, your father's amazing, and I'm just like, wow, okay. And in this letter, he shared some of his weaknesses. And I was like, wow, my dad knows he's human. He knows he's human. And that to me was just amazing. And how he spoke about each and every one of us in this rather shortish letter to communicate who he was. And I probably could tell you sort of who he was without him putting his words on the page. And yet at the same time, I probably wouldn't say it in the same way he did. And it was very profound. And because he hates the phone, I have taken this letter with me and read it and reread it over the years. And when I feel yucky, I pull it out and I read it again. And I hear his voice and I feel his presence.
Okay, so I wanted to show you that just because the impact that these letters or these documents that we leave behind can last for years and beyond. So one more thing I was going to show you, and then we're going to actually go to the next topic.
If you wanted the final, who made it, and what do you call that?
I wasn't teaching my own years, so.
All right, so here's just
This rabbi played
all right, at home. This is here we go.
Did you get it now?
Okay, here we're back.
Yeah, is that the one that, who's that for? Oh, Terry, yeah, of course.
All right. So here's just some things to think about when you're writing one, okay? Who is your intended audience? What kind of letter do you wish to write? This is from the Amatai website.
Mhm.
When do you intend to write and share your letter? Where do you intend to store your letter? How will your letter be written? Why are you writing this letter? Some motivations might include: share what has been most important, meaningful in your life. Give your descendants a sense of their identity and purpose in life, like Yaakov Avinu did. Explain the meaning behind some of the financial arrangements in your will. Okay. Share stories, life lessons, and advice, like we saw with the rabbis in their document. State memorial requests. So we saw that, like someone to be eulogized, some didn't. Say goodbye. We saw that a little bit in those letters as well. Express gratitude. We also saw that. Ask or offer forgiveness, and give the recipient permission to go on living. That's a very powerful one as well. And confront your own mortality. So that kind of brings it all together. So we basically said all those pieces. So think about it. You can write one and then revisit it later on, and rewrite it. Doesn't. It's just if you feel like this is something. The whole Amatai organization is about, like, if not now, when. So you never know, things happen in life and you want to have things in place. So it's definitely could be a positive thing to do. All right, so let's go on to our next, if I can get out of here. Okay.
I wonder if she was related to Rabbi Zayman, who was at Chezek Amuna for many years. Does anybody know?
It's a good question. Anybody know?
No.
I don't think anybody knows.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, which is a very important one. I'm gonna hand out these documents here. And at home, I'm gonna project it on the screen. So, these are documents that Rabbi Jason Weiner handed out when he was here. So were you here for that? Who is, anybody here for that?
Yeah.
Yes, you saw this. I'm gonna go over this in general with you. I'll share with you on the screen.
Okay. That was schwa.
That.
I don't think it's meant to be a shame.
Before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the end of life directive. This is from the Amitai website. Okay, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? This famous ancient teaching of Hillel the Elder is not just a pithy aphorism, but a call to action to get our affairs in order in case of severe illness or death. So someone might put together an end of life directive for a time when they can't. They need help sorting out their situation if they're not properly healthy or they can't make the decision on your own. You want to have as much guidance as possible for your loved ones so that they can help you the best way possible based on what you need and the most easiest way for them. So this document is a path towards offering that to our loved ones. So he says in our day and age, it calls for us to contemplate our healthcare journey. Incredible medical innovation provides ways to save lives and extend the average life expectancy, etc. This is an incredible blessing. Yet no one knows what fate awaits them. We don't know. Some people live healthy until a ripe old age and pass away after a short illness or quietly in their sleep. In those scenarios, the few decisions that need to be made are relatively straightforward. For many others, the process can be more extended and complex, with hospitalizations and ups and downs in one's physical and mental condition. It can include drastic sudden changes. Modern medicine sometimes offers wonderful solutions. Oftentimes, it may present treatments that can extend one's life without providing a cure, which is valuable to some and not to others. In these scenarios, many decisions will need to be made by you or your family regarding healthcare and living conditions. You'll need to decide how you want to live under trying circumstances. At times, important decisions will need to be made on your behalf by your loved ones. So here are a few situations where these decisions will need to be made by your loved ones, and they'll need guidance from you. And so here are a few examples. A terminal illness as with an aggressive form of cancer, which life expectancy is less than 6 months. Progressive dementia, so someone's dementia is progressing, that could happen. And when you're clear, when you're lucid, you want to put this information down so that they know who the point person is. We're going to see there's two parts to this document. One is like the actual directive. Another one is like guiding questions to help your proxy know where your values are. And so you want to give as much information as possible so they can know, number one, what you want. And number two, Rabbi Shlomo Brody mentions this in like one of his lectures. He says, you can put down, I want my children to help me if something happens to me, God forbid. Let's say you have 3 or 4 children. Each of those children are a different Jewish denomination. Each of those children has their own rabbi. So, okay, well, they get some guidance. Go ask their rabbi. Oh, hey, can you believe it? The different rabbis have different opinions on things. So it gets very confusing. It can cause great fights. And so the more direction you can give, the more you can spare your family that inner fighting, and the more information you can offer, the easier it can be for them to know how to help you in your time of need. So that's kind of the purpose of the end of life directive. A degenerative chronic disease such as multiple sclerosis, etc., aging with frailty in which nagging ailments hamper one's physical and social abilities, drastic changes in one's health condition. So these are a few examples. Heart attack, so car accident, God forbid. These things can happen suddenly, God forbid. And in a few moments, you need the healthcare administrators, or they need guidance as to what you want, and you can't offer it to them. So you have to have that proxy in place, especially to like when it comes to end of life decisions. If you want to be resuscitated or not, which we saw If you want to donate your organs, let's say, God forbid, you suffer, what's the word? Irreversible coma or brain death. Do you want to donate your organs or not? Or if you believe that that is even the moment of death, all that should be sorted out beforehand. So, and written down, so the proxy and the people who are trying to help you can move forward with what you want, with what you desire. So you could die in a respectful way. You can help those who are living to help you in a respectful way. So let's look a little bit at his document.
Can I say something about
Yeah.
As in my former life, as an intensive care physician, we had to deal with this type of thing quite a bit. Often. Yeah, and one of the things that was always helpful is if the will, the desires of the person were clear, or the proxy was clear. When the physician asks, well, what do you think? Should we continue? What do you think? And the answer was all too often, well, do whatever you think is right. That's not the point.
Sorry.
So
Bless you.
something to think about.
All right, yeah. So also from a Jewish perspective, we want to make sure things are done Jewishly. So if it just says, if it's whatever you think and the path is to, I don't know, some sort of organ donation that you're not comfortable with, or any other type of directive that goes against traditional Jewish values. So you want to try to avoid that. So on this document, you basically have a proxy and you have a rabbi that the proxy is in touch with. The rabbi can be the proxy. The proxy is your like legal, what would be the word? Your legal decision maker, well, your representative. And that representative could be your rabbi, or you put a rabbi that they're supposed to consult with. And they're supposed to know what you want and desire, and they're supposed to know to talk to that rabbi. All that's going to be on this document. Okay, so let's see. This is a legal document, by the way. Okay, so there's some information on this, but let's just go to the many people and their families can have different religious perspectives. We talked about that. That's why you want a rabbi written down there. A couple, for example, might have relationships with several rabbis. So you want to put a rabbi down. That's going to be the address. Also, he says they talk about this, like, make sure you choose your rabbi wisely. What do they mean? Like, your rabbi could be an amazing sermonizer, but they don't know anything about end of life ethics or or whatever. Like, you want to have somebody who knows what they're talking about, not just because they're a rabbi that you like for a certain thing. So here's talking about the different parts of it here. Here's where you declare that your proxy, I'm going to show you it in a moment, has full authority to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. Then you have a part about organ donation transplant. A person may elect to donate their organs if they have been declared dead under a local legal criteria, the criteria of Jewish law. This section allows you to authorize your proxy to approve transplantation of organs and tissues permissible under Jewish law and custom. You may also express your opposition to organ donation or specify which organs you'd be willing to donate. So it's flexible. You don't have to go with one. We talked about the different approaches. So you can follow what your rabbi tells you. You're not locked into one way. So let's see the document. There's witnesses that have to sign it as well. Okay, so you put your personal information, and so when Rabbi Jason Weiner came here, I filled out one. Many people joined me. We just filled out one. And if you don't like it, you can just rip it up and fill out another one. Meaning the most recent one that you have is the one that's going to be used. Once you have it, you're going to send it to those send it to your proxy, send it to your rabbi, and file it away so that those people who need it, they'll have it. Okay, and you can also file it with your insurance so you put your personal information, you put your healthcare proxy, you say, I designate the following person to act on my behalf. Yeah, if I'm not able to communicate on healthcare decisions for myself. You can have an alternate as well. If they're not available or whatever, let's say you put somebody down and they're just on a vacation, it's they need immediate help, immediate answer. So you want to have somebody else there who can serve as an alternate proxy. too there. So you give, this is this is what you're giving them full authority to make decisions for me about healthcare, end of life care, but I'm able to make community healthcare decisions for myself. My desire, which I hereby direct my proxy, that all decision-making about my healthcare should be done in accordance with Jewish law and custom. That's what makes this like a Jewish document. There's more information here, but rabbinic consultant. So you want to have a rabbinic consultant down here. And then you have also alternate as well, because maybe the rabbi is not available in that specific moment when they're needed. So here's where you have an option for different modes of organ donation. I authorize my proxy to approve transplantation of any organs. It's issued permissible under Jewish law and customs. That would be like how you define that. That would be maybe in the second part of the document that's going to be discussed a little bit. But I do not wish to donate any of my organs or tissues. I authorize proxy to approve transplantation for only the following organs or tissues. So upon your death, you can put down the organs you want to be transplanted or not. Consult with your rabbi on that. You know what your rabbi feels comfortable with and what you feel comfortable with in terms of that. We talked a little bit about it's all dependent on the moment of death and how you define that. You put your signature down, and there's witnesses. So in our directive workshop, we just say Rabbi Shlomo Broder in his lecture on this, he's like, I imagine most of the people here in this room, you're not including in your will. So those people can sign on the witness. You can't have a witness who has an interest. You know? So somebody who doesn't so people just chose people just sitting next to them, had them be the witness, and they signed it, and that was the document. And you have this document in place. You thought about the person you trust, person you want to be there, your proxy. You thought about your rabbi, you put it in there and you signed it, you put your witnesses down, and then basically you can notarize it. You don't have to, but you can notarize it. And that's the document. So that is a legal document. Now the company document to this is this. It's a few details what you're supposed to do. You can store it in the cloud through Amatai if you want. There's a different document for people in Canada, in Quebec or whatever. All right, so this is about a conversation guide. This is another valuable piece. There's a lot of information here, but let's take a look just at some of the questions that they're asking. And this is going to be helpful again for your proxy to know as much information as possible. So Jason Weiner says like people put him down as their proxy because they trust him. He's their rabbi and their proxy. So sometimes he'll get a call and they'll be like, okay, you know, Rabbi Weiner, this and this person passed away. And he's sometimes like thinking to himself, like, I don't really know who the person is or what they want. And so this document is very valuable in that sense. It's also very valuable for the ones who know us the most. They don't always know everything. It also helps us clarify what we want. Okay. Yeah.
Just to dovetail with what my colleague here said before, in terms of like end of life care in the ICU or the hospital or whatever, the document's also very important to keep shalom bayit, because when you have sons, daughters, spouse, grandchildren, all with varying degrees of contact, and nobody is the designated proxy, that's crazy. That's a mini war.
Yeah. So we kind of mentioned that
nothing happens, like no progress gets made.
Yeah.
And it's a guarantee that the subject's wishes will not be followed because nobody can agree on it.
Correct. So it's a big chesed, it's a big kindness to think about this, think about these arrangements, think about this beforehand, so that you can spare, you know, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch is saying, you know, just get along with each other. So help them get along, help your family get along, have your family know what you want, get to know what you want also. So this document is helpful in that sense. So
also there's something else that people often neglect, and that is have to give, now with HIPAA rules, you have to give permission for your children if they are involved in any way.
Wow, thank you.
Your children are not automatically allowed.
That's right. They automatically are not involved. And it depends. If you want your children to be involved in any way, even to see you, you have to itemize that in your health directive.
Thank you. So if there's nobody listed, who does it?
Spouse and then next of kin.
Okay.
You know, but
Well, in mine, I had
That's a great
itemized who
method.
were.
Let's take a look at some of these questions. So as a patient, I generally prefer knowing as little as possible about my condition and my treatment. Only general summary information about my condition and my treatment, all the details about my condition and treatment. So it's very different. So we just hold the questions. I want to kind of get through these questions and answers here. These points of discussion points. So some patients want to know, they want to know everything. There's it's funny, Rabbi Weiner told a story in his recording I heard on this. He said like that there's a note, there's like a letter outside of a patient's room that says, this patient has cancer, but don't speak about them. They don't know how bad the situation is. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna be very careful. He comes in there, starts talking to him. He goes, Rabbi, I have to talk to you about something. Says, Rabbi, I want you to know I have cancer, but don't tell my family. But like, but some people want to know, some people want to be protected from, I mean, it can be very dangerous sometimes. There can be situations where the more a patient knows, the more it will cause them distress, and they don't want to know everything. So this can be helpful. Your proxy is somebody who, when you can't make those decisions on your own, they are there. How much should they be sharing with you? How much not? Give them some guidance. Think about it if you want. If I have terminal illness, I prefer not knowing how quickly it is progressing, only having a good general sense of my prognosis, knowing the best detailed estimation for how long I have to live. If I'm deemed terminally ill, I would prefer treatments focused only on, so this is the question we talked about with hospice. If I'm terminally ill, meaning at this point, you can't speak about what you want. So you can't make that decision. The person needs to know beforehand what you want. Treatments focused only on comfort and managing my symptoms. Treatments focused on comfort and managing my symptoms while also being open to potentially painful treatments or procedures that might extend my life. Right? We talked about this, the value of life, if an infinite value or relative value. As I told you, all of the stuff we learned is going to come together in this text. So basically, like, how much pain are you willing to go through to extend your life versus wanting comfort care at that time? Where are you? Treatments focused on extending my life without prioritizing my comfort. You might be of the opinion, like, as long as possible, I want to be here no matter what, no matter what the pain is, that's what I want. I can't share that. You might not be able to share that with them, but you've written it down to let them know. At the end of this document, there are lines, there's like empty space where you can fill in any other details that you want. So this isn't like written in stone where I only have 3 options. You can also write some other details in here as well. Okay, so it's not like it's written in stone, there's only 3. If I have a universal lack of cognition, as in cases of advanced dementia or severe brain injury, I would prefer. So it's the same thing. Just additional comments.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Can you go back down? What's the one where it says, where it's a little one? Treatment focus only on below that. Treatment focus on fulfilling my life without prioritizing my comfort. So that would mean
That's the view that we talked about, that life is of infinite value. No matter what, extend life as long as possible, even if it means I'm going to go through excruciating pain, meaning
but the person who's writing this will is the person who's dying. Why would they want
the person writes this before they're dying?
They would want to extend a life even if they're in pain?
Yeah. Yeah.
you might not agree with that, but there's certainly people.
So we know what you would answer on this, but others.
You better believe it.
I mean, there's a whole train of thought.
That they would do that. They're not.
It's not.
Some people believe a miracle is going to happen no matter what.
That's correct. That, and also.
Very common answer on the living world and healthcare.
Do you want, Freddie, you want to share how you know about this?
Why do this?
Yeah.
I help people, I see this too.
Yeah. So feel free to also chime in. We have 3 minutes left, so. No, I mean, I'm serious. We have a few minutes left. Whatever other information specific on this that you can help us with, it's very welcome. Okay. So here's it's also more indication of where you are, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Needing someone. So I worry about needing someone to help me with basic daily activities such as eating, bathing, and getting dressed. I strongly disagree, mixed feelings, agree, strongly agree. How much do you worry about that? Needing somebody to help you versus not worrying about that? Do you worry about being an excessive burden to others? Meaning, remember Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was like, if I get old, just put me in a home. So some people are really like that. Like they want what they want. If they can't speak for themselves, they want to be as less of a burden as possible to others. Others say, hey, I took care of you when you were a kid, now take care of me, or whatever. Everybody has a different direction. I'm not just saying which is better or not, but give them some indication. Maybe you've spoken about them to your proxy a lot during your life. That's great, but put it in writing so they have an indication. Being alone and feeling lonely. Some people want to be in their homes in their final days. Other people are happy being alone. Like some people are happy being, they want to be alone. Some people want to be surrounded by people. People have different desires. Let people know. They have 5 levels here. If it became difficult for me to live in my home, I would value being cared for in the home of a family member, being cared for in a nursing home, right? So what would you, if you had a choice, remaining in my home, even if it meant limitations, the amount of skilled medical care I could receive. Okay. Further thoughts. So here's a place where you can fill in further thoughts. So basically, this is giving direction and guidance to our loved ones, kind of help us clarify what's important to us and what we want in end of life. It's really as a kindness. It's being responsible, and it doesn't mean I wouldn't get caught up in the evil eye or some sort of like, if I write this, something's bad gonna happen. You write it. All the rabbis wrote it. We saw Moshe, David, Yaakov, the rabbis I showed you. It's good to have material down. You never know what life's going to bring, and the more you can put this down in paper, the greater kindness you're doing for your loved ones. So it's really something to think about. It's being responsible. We're responsible with our inheritance. We're responsible with the money, our money. We also be responsible with our spiritual inheritance, and also be kind to our family to give them some guidance and direction. I want to just ask Fred if you have any other thoughts you're thinking or feedback.
So Maryland has a very good form living will and a good healthcare power of attorney form. But if you really want to get into the details, there's a most form. I saw it in one of the,
you mentioned that,
the
yeah.
articles. It was on the screen before, where the physician actually fills that out for your patient. And you can get into more detail. The Maryland Living Will doesn't really get into as much detail as you would think, or that's available in other states. Some states have a form where it gets into specific issues like kidney dialysis and resuscitation and ventilation.
Yes, but this doesn't get into that into those specifics. You can add it on.
I can, but it's just look, the most important decision is
Most MOLST, I think.
and you're talking about family dynamics.
Before you have more
extremely difficult decision. Who should be in charge? If you don't have this document, I don't think anyone makes that decision. The doctors, I don't believe that the right thing to do is the healthcare practitioners are not going to take orders from a spouse if you don't have a living will that says my spouse is to make the decision.
Actually, that's not true. Legally, if there's nothing else.
Right, that's a default.
The spouse
At least
is
here,
default,
yeah.
exactly. But I have encountered situations where had there not been the will, as the appointment of the healthcare proxy, we would have had knockdown, drag out fights.
Yeah.
Thank God that's not often, but
Those are the worst though.
I've had situations where siblings are fighting each other and trying to order the spouse around, and finally spoke up and this is what you would want.
So I was gonna put out, I'm calling Sheila and Ted, let's put out there that I'm going to send out the email. I'll attach this as a PDF so you can just have it and download it. And whatever, did it come, someone said they had trouble printing it, so I'll try to attach it. I don't attach the link, I'll attach it as a downloaded PDF.
Yeah,
That's
better.
Sheila and Ted.
So the nice thing about the most is that you sit and you do it with your healthcare provider.
You hear
You have
Sheila?
a relationship
Right.
with that treats you and knows you.
That's what we discussed here,
And
right?
if you do
Yeah,
that,
never
when
heard
you're, of sound mind and, in pretty good health, it's good to do a most with your provider.
MOLST.
And then when
Okay.
things aren't good and when your family's having
where am I seeing?
disagreements.
The
Then
bottom
you
left.
have that
Oh, thank
pulse
you.
to say, and the provider can also say, cause I can remember
you.
with my mother. I called the provider when it was really still hard to make the decision.
Oh, yeah,
And
you're right.
she's like, Sheila, you remember, we had this discussion with your mother. And that helps, it really
How does
helps so
one,
much.
you call your healthcare provider and how do you?
Well, I did, I called the primary care doctor and she like kinda helped me.
It out,
Okay.
and signs it.
Depends on your,
And that overrules.
I tried.
Right. Yeah.
honestly,
You can probably Google.
there's some that are
some
some-
Good stuff.
Anything else?
Practical advice is when you do these, make sure your healthcare provider has a copy of
That's
it.
correct.
And what you want to make sure when you do this, give each one of your proxies a copy of it so that
Correct.
they have it. And most importantly, make sure that you have up-to-date contact information, because you have a healthcare provider, who has to contact somebody and they have to know the email, has to know the phone number, and it helps identify who these people are. Just don't do this and put it in your, put it in your safe.
Also, they talk in there was rabbis, Brody and Rabbi Weiner talk a lot about like updating it, not just because your values change, so it's like, I think at a certain point it says like, a question, I think he has a question there somewhere like, if there's certain family event or something like that, and the occasion of wanting to arrive at that event, I would like you to extend my life to even amid discomfort. I don't know, I didn't see here, but he mentioned it in one of his recordings, like, that might change with time, like as you get, I don't know, like it could be something you.
Let me just do another one, because the rabbi said do this every 5 years. You want to do this fairly frequently, and the reason for that is medical science is not stagnant. It changes very rapidly, and you want to look this over and say, hey, COVID, if you had one of these before COVID, you said, I don't want to be on any kind of mechanical device. When COVID comes along, you're on a mechanical device for 30 days, and you have to put down, and you don't want to be on a mechanical device, you're dead. So the 5 years that the rabbi talked about.
Yeah, it's just the number. I mean, it could be more. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. We finished our mini unit on end of life ethics. You'll get this in the mail. Think about it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have a happy Passover, happy and kosher Passover, and we'll reconvene afterwards.
What?
And this was a happy send off.
Right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody on Zoom.
Very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Happy Passover.
Thank you.